Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Good morning. Summer is Obon season, and yet this year is different. Almost none of the BCA temples will have Obon Odori or dancing. It's sad because this is a very important community event. People come together. But the recent increase in infections and deaths in San Diego has compelled the temple and many other businesses not to open. Governor Newsom has said that indoor activity should be curtailed. However, there have been some churches who have defied this order, and they've had services, which included being close together, perhaps not wearing masks, singing. But unfortunately, some of these people contacted the infection and got sick. And so we in the Buddhist temples follow these instructions because we know they affect other people and we're concerned. And so for us Buddhists, it's what is real that's important. We're not engaged in right or wrong, good or bad, but we're waking up to what is real. Now, the Buddha taught that our suffering is caused by our ignorance, not knowing, just ignoring the fact that there are things we want that are unreal. And so what is important? We have rituals. We have rituals like this Obon dancing, attending services. We do burning incense, chanting, all these things. And yet, is it these rituals that are most important? Or is it that these rituals point to a deeper truth? We have the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. This is not a ritual. It represents truth itself. And I hope I can explain that. Now, Obon is a special time because it connects us with those who have passed on. Hatsubon is known as the first Obon service for those who have passed on within this past year. In a way, everyone this year is experiencing a Hatsubon in that we lost something from last year. Instead of gathering, we're isolated. Of course, for those who have lost a loved one, this is a true Hatsubon service because we are not with those who were with us last year. This year is different, and to grieve, we must grieve perhaps alone, not with the family or Sangha. And yet we do have the Nembutsu. So what does the Nembutsu teach us? What does Obon teach us? We have this term in Shin Buddhism called Ichi Go, Ichi E. And what it means is that each encounter with others is unique, it's precious. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. It can't be repeated. And it tells us how special it is to be together. Now, Obon is probably the most personal service of the year. We have very important services like Ho'onko, Hanamatsuri, Gotae, Bodhi. These are, of course, important services that depict the birth or death days of our leaders or other activities. But Obon is very personal because we have all lost someone we loved. And so these services have a personal experience to it. So what does this service or Obon dancing mean to us? What are these rituals? Now, for Christians, Sunday is an important day. It's a sacred day. And I think for Jews, Saturday is important. So what day is very sacred for Buddhists? I think it is every day. Every day is significant for Buddhists. We celebrate it because every day is sacred. Our whole life is sacred. It may seem like it's like every other day, and that's the truth of it, that every day is sacred. Now, why is this so sacred? Because our entire life is spiritual. Now, physical life is impermanent. If we die, it's the end of it. And for us, that means that there's nothing in the future. But the spiritual life means that life continues in some way. And so life continues with our family and friends and in the Sangha. Last week, we talked about riptides. This is when the ocean shows that it comes to shore in waves, but those waves have to go out, and they go out to sea in what's called rip currents or riptides, and it carries people out to sea. These things cannot be seen, but it's there. And we made an analogy that there are many unseen things that can carry us out and be dangerous for us. And we know that the COVID-19 pandemic and the Black Lives Matter and global warming, we're waking up to these issues that have always been with us. And yet, because of certain incidences, we're now waking up to it. The increased incidence of death and infection shows us that our behavior is not conquering this virus. We see videos of police killing black men and women in unjustified situations. And there are many signs of global warming. Hopefully we're becoming aware of these signs. And so all these things have been influencing our lives, and yet we have not seen them, like this rip current. But now we are waking up to them. Now, if we are part of interdependence, we are also part of wisdom and compassion. And it's really inspired me that in our Buddhism 1, 2, 3 class, many participants have voiced an interest and have voiced participation in noticing that Buddhism does affect our ordinary life in great ways. It is not just being in temple or attending services, but it is in being active in life itself. John Lewis died on Friday. He was a significant force for equality. He said, if you see something, some injustice, say something, do something. What he was saying is that we are involved, and that sitting by does not help a situation. If we were to see a young child perhaps hitting another child, will we just watch? Or might we help educate that child and say, oh, you must be angry? And that, of course, kind of supports that emotion. But then we could correct his action, his conduct, and say that it's not nice. It hurts another person if you say something harmful or hit someone. And so we are educating people. We are reviewing the ignorance of one's actions. And so we need to do this. We need to say something, because some of us have carried these childhood behaviors into adulthood. And if a person reaches 70 and still acts like a child, it may be too late to teach them what is true. Now, John Lewis's life was about waking up to what is real. And he told us that the life that we have comes from, in America, a perspective of the European white male. And yet, America was built on the diversity of many people. And so many in our society are ignorant of the true values of our life. Many people are still unaware of the Japanese-American concentration camps of the 1940s. And so we must help others to wake up, to fight these injustices. We're waking up to the reality that the virus is among all of us, and any of us could have this virus without symptoms. We're waking up to the social, economic, housing, educational inequities in many aspects of our life, not just in the justice system. We're waking up to the fact that our ordinary life in the last 50 years have contributed to the planet warming, and that it could bring catastrophic results to our children and grandchildren. So we must educate ourselves and others as to what is real. Now, we may be disappointed that we don't have our Obon dancing, but this may just be because of our expectations. But it goes much more than that. When we suffer, it tells us that there's a problem, that there's an imbalance. And instead of just noting this, we might do something with that imbalance. Again, if it's purely on a physical level, we would see that this imbalance is very difficult to resolve. They, us, this us against them. Two sides that can't come together. But if we see this from a deeper level, on the level of interdependence, we see that we are still units of this whole, and that we can find a solution that helps us all. This is also true of this thing we call death, that there's a separation, and that on a purely physical level, that would end our relationship. And yet, because of our thought of interdependence, we realize that we are still connected, that we can value that we had time together, that this voicing Namo Amida Butsu still has a connection, and we can appreciate that we had a life together and we still continue to live, perhaps not in physical form, but in the spiritual realm. So Obon allows us to appreciate this other level of life, this true reality. We can appreciate those who have passed on because they have contributed to our lives. Now, as we dance, which we don't have this year, but we recall those who danced with us last year, or the years in the past. And we know that those who have lived, and when we die, we will continue to live in the lives and thoughts of those who remain, our friends, family, and the Sangha. And we're reminded of this term, Ichi Go, Ichi E, that with each encounter with another, it is special, it's unique, it's a once-in-a-lifetime event. And with that thought, every part of our life can be important, and we cherish it. We know that it's sacred. I was asked to write an article for Morgan Freeman's Story of God some years ago. And I was asked to write on my response to my holiest place as a Buddhist. This was published in a USA Today publication. And my response was that my holiest place was by voicing Namo Amida Butsu. It's not a geographical place. It's not a building. It's not any special thing in particular. But it brings me to a holy, sacred place just in that voicing. All places are sacred. And with that, we see that we can wake up to this rip current that's going underneath that is unseen. That we are living a life that has these issues of problems. But we see that Namo Amida Butsu is not the rip current that comes in, the waves that go out. It's all of that. Namo Amida Butsu is the ocean that supports us. And so, just by voicing that, we see that our practical, physical life is supported by a spiritual life, and that I can appreciate each moment. And I can appreciate each encounter I have with another person. In this time of isolation, we can think of that and really appreciate the times we've had with each other. So let's think and remember all the times we spent together, and if we can get back to that time, which is the simple voicing of Namo Amida Butsu. We appreciate each other, knowing that each encounter is special and unique. Please join me in expressing our deepest appreciation for our life, our spiritual life, our sacred life, our life with the Nembutsu, and with all those who have made it worthwhile. Gasho, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu.